Welcome back to another episode of the Corporate Cowboys podcast. My name is Alex, your host. And if you don't know the form of this podcast, for the next 30 minutes, you've got me as an impromptu, ad hoc career consultant, right? Hypothetically speaking, I might as well give you the legal disclaimer up front so that it's in your face, or better said, in your ear. Nothing that we put across this podcast in the form of content or messaging should be construed to be legal advice, right? We do not condone, we do not promote any wrongful activity, any wrongdoing. Sure, we might touch on it in conversation and discussion, but this is all one way. At no point in time have you engaged us just by listening to these episodes. At no point in time are we your representatives. Are we your legal counsel, or is this any actionable advice without more information, without you actually reaching out to us, right? So can't claim that gangsta rap made me do it. All right, today's proof of life. It's Tuesday, April 11, 2023. And we're treating these 30-minute episodes as an open door session, right, to our office. Pretend you stepped in, you don't have an immediate circle that you can come to and really pose these questions about how to move within corporate, how to act like a corporate cowboy and promote yourself, move up in the world, climb the corporate ladder, get promotions, get better compensation, negotiate your title, your rank, right? Because business is war. And even the baddest motherfuckers all started in the trenches. An OG once told me. And it's true. I can verify. I've been in the game going on at least a decade. I'm not going to give you my exact age, but I've been in it at least a decade. And I can attest that all bad motherfuckers, all badass motherfuckers started as shit-eating grunts. That's verbatim, word for word, what the OG told me. Today's question comes from r/career guidance. And they're asking for advice. They've flared it for us. So what we're going to do is go ahead and read this, provide some advice, potentially critique some of the comments below it if I don't get caught up pontificating and going off on a stream of consciousness. But again, I mean, if you're not calling in, or if this isn't a question which provides us with a lot of contextual information, then we're going to go off of what's available to us and try and make as reasonable as inferences as possible in order to give as best rounded answer to this question. Again, this is a hypothetical client we're working with. Okay, so if the shoe fits, you could potentially lace it up. Otherwise, don't attempt to jump and fly before you can crawl and walk. All right. The question is asking, would you take a job? Yes. Right off the bat. Yes. Would you take a job? Yes. Relax, Alex, relax. Would you take a job that negotiates salary after the probationary period? Ooh. Okay. First of all, would you take a job that allows you to negotiate at all? Yes, absolutely. Would you take a job that negotiates salary after the probationary period? That's a curve. That's a curveball. It doesn't automatically strike this job prospect from a list, right? If you're applying, I mean, I would follow through, interview, get whatever information it is you can or that you need in order to make your decision as to whether you should continue interviewing or take the job if it's offered to you, right? So at least follow through to make an informed decision. But Oh, the question continues here, but the job post did not reflect this waiting period. That's sus. That's suspect, as the youth says today, right? As the youth say, the youth, that's sus. It is, right? If they addressed it in your interview and said, yes, this position allows for negotiation after the probationary period, it sounds to me like they're adding an additional term that you weren't privy to when the job listing showed up and you applied for it. I mean, if the job listing said that, I feel it'd be more honest in its advertisement. But it's not so much a bait and switch. I don't think it disqualifies, like I said early on. It doesn't automatically disqualify this job from you applying for it. You want to keep in mind and you want to ask how long the probationary period is. Beyond that, you want to ask what the base salary is during your probationary period. I mean, can you live off of what it is they're offering before you're allowed to negotiate? If you're not able to live off of what they're paying, why the fuck would you take it? At least negotiate for something that is allows for your cost of living, for your living expenses as they exist now, while you're going through the probationary period. What, are you going to sell yourself short? That's not even minimum wage. Motherfuckers can't live on minimum wage. To be honest, to be frank, to speak like a consummate professional, some motherfuckers don't even deserve minimum wage, right? But not you. If you're listening in and you've followed along, you want to move like a corporate cowboy, like a consummate professional, then you know that your work ethic, your quality of product ought to dictate how you negotiate your pay. There's going to be motherfuckers who sell themselves short. But, I mean, you can't necessarily reach out and tell them that, or it could go to their head. Unnecessarily go to their head. But you've got to find a way to work around that and differentiate yourself, set yourself apart to get what's due, to get what you are due, what you should be compensated, right? That said, if after the probationary period, they don't want to negotiate, I mean, don't even wait for that, right? Get this in writing. Don't wait for the probationary period to lapse or to end. And then they say, oh, no, sorry, we can't negotiate, or the time for negotiations are over, like for the year, like maybe the review day or the review period for the company was during the probationary period, but because you're a new employee and you're barely working out of your probationary period, they've got nothing to evaluate you on or review your performance thus far. And so they say, oop, they just throw their hands up. Looks like you'll have to wait until next year. Fuck all of that. Fuck all of that. You want the review and evaluation for you to be able to negotiate. You want that in writing. As soon as the offer comes down, that's what you should be keeping an eye out for, because that's your door. That's your way in. That's your in, right? You won't take the job for any other reason, but you're going to stick around in the probationary. You're going to stick around for the base salary in the off chance that you're allowed to negotiate. Fuck all of that. If that's what they said in the interview, that's what you ought to hold them to. And you want it in writing. Now, if for whatever reason they have and this will depend on company to company, firm to firm, industry to industry, even whatever the practice is, they might have a standard employment agreement, right? Something that's like just boilerplate that they hand everybody to sign. And in that agreement, it might not mention at all the fact that a probationary period even exists, or that you're allowed to negotiate after the probationary period ends. That's the language you want to see in that agreement. Read through it. That's my recommendation off top for most all of my clients, is to read. And obviously the caveat, not the caveat, but the reality check for a lot of our clients that hit us is that they didn't read the employment agreement. They're just going off of what they discussed during the interview. But you can't necessarily hold the employer to what you discussed during the interview if they don't follow through with the written offer. And if in the written offer it doesn't say that, then you should bring it up to them. That's how you negotiate like a professional. If you're timid for whatever reason, right? Consider therapizing yourself. Some self-therapy. Really look inside yourself, examine yourself, and assess how you can improve your communication skills so that you're not walked all over and stepped on like a fucking rug. Like a welcome mat, right? If you absolutely think you need representation, you need some type of attorney to negotiate for you, or right, you want to do the negotiating, but you need pointers. You need someone to help read the agreement with you and point out any of those concerns you might have. Say that is something you agreed to during the interview, and you want to pitch us the agreement and say, here, Alex, take a look at this for me. Does it allow for what we talked about during the interview, for what this company and I discussed would be happening after the 3 months that I'm on probation, after the 6 months that I'm on probation, however long this probationary period is. And again, that depends. Company to company, firm to firm, industry to industry. I haven't even read the body on this, so maybe they give us information. Maybe they give us more on their circumstances so that we can better inform this opinion of ours. They write, is it normal for an employer to refuse salary negotiations until after the probationary period? Is it normal? Is corporate normal? Nah, not really. Corporate's got standards. Corporate's got practices, right? And they're not so much normal. They're norms while they're there, but it's not unheard of that negotiations are reserved until after the probationary period, right? And that depends how long the probationary period lasts. Because you could just as well, if you're a fucking hustler, if you're not a finesser, but if you can finesse your way into negotiating, I'm not saying you're going to finesse your way into a higher salary and then cheat them out or jug them out of some quality work, right? But if you can finesse your way into negotiating your salary up front, then you're living during the probationary period, right? Because you know the salary is what you wanted it to be. Now you're just going through the motions of the probationary period. And this is going to be based on and justified because you've got the education, you've got the experience, you've got the technical expertise and know-how that's required for the position that you applied for. Now, if it's a tighter spot, a harder spot to get into, it's not unheard of that negotiations are reserved for after the probationary period. But again, I give you, the listener, the aspiring professional, the caveat that you should read any employment agreement that has the offer on it so that it has those terms. The the base salary that you're being hired on for, how long the probationary period is for, and any metrics or evaluation benchmarks that they'll be using to assess your performance and that during that probationary period. Now that gets really specific, really technical. And again, if it requires higher level planning and strategizing, you can reach out to us for that. And our rates are more than reasonable, right? But as far as this free opinion of ours, this free consultation, those are just points that you want to keep in the back of your mind as you read through your agreement. Because at the end, or not even at the end, but during the probationary period, you know what you are working for in the end. And when that day comes, you want to put forth your best case for why you deserve a specific salary, why they should enter good faith negotiation with you, given your performance during the probationary period. It's not that difficult, and it's definitely not unheard of. So they write, is it normal, continuing, is it normal for an employer to refuse salary negotiations until after the probationary period? They continue, I applied for a job that my experience covers nearly all aspects of, other than learning new software, which isn't that difficult. The job posting indicated that the salary was negotiable based on experience. When I was offered the job, I counter-offered, but was told they would do that after the probationary period and that I would start at the posted salary. Is this normal? They write. Is this normal? The salary is pretty low based on my experience. The title would be great on my resume, but I don't know if I want to work, then have them reject my counter offer after the probationary period. Anyone else experience this? I withheld a lot of my commentary because as we neared the end of that body there's some points that stood out and that irked me a little bit, caused some consternation, some borderline frustration. No such thing as a counter offer after you get hired. If you're in the probationary period, you're no longer counter offering, right? It's just going to be a renegotiation, reopening your agreement and renegotiating the terms, right? A counter offer is going to be like when they first give you the offer, you send them back another number. That is a counter offer. If they don't agree or you don't agree, then there is no offer, there is no acceptance, there is no agreement, right? That's just straightforward contracts law. Now you give them a counter offer and they say it's not possible. They'll take or consider a different number after the probationary period. That is actually a counteroffer to your counteroffer. They're letting you know they've actually added that term and are willing to concede that term, that they will reopen negotiations after the probationary period. At that very point, is when you want it in writing that they will reopen negotiations for your salary. Having them agree in writing that they will reopen salary negotiations is how you guarantee, to a very certain, rather certain, let's say, because again, none of this is legal advice, but a rather certain and rather legal degree that when the probationary period ends, they won't reject your offer, right? At least won't reject or deny you the opportunity to renegotiate. I'm not going to I'm not going to allude. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm not going to. I'm not going to allude to you being successful or to them saying, "Oh, I guess we can't say no to your counteroffer," which it's not a counteroffer; it's a renegotiation. I'm not going to put words in the company's mouth, but if it's in writing, which if I suppose you take that a step further, you could probably renegotiate, not renegotiate, because that takes place in the future. You could probably negotiate your salary increase up front for it to take effect after the probationary period, right? Don't get dragged by this company either. If they say that they'll reopen up negotiations, nice. How about we negotiate that salary after the probationary period right now? Again, it also entails a little bit of risk on how assertive or how professional you are in your approach. But that's another step. I've just been incrementally becoming more assertive with this opinion, if you haven't seen that. First, you either want it in writing. Second, you can negotiate it then and still secure it in writing. Lastly, and more boldly, I mentioned earlier offhand, if you are a hustler and you can finesse your way into negotiating that then and there. I mean, why even wait for a probationary period? If this is a company, a firm that you know you want to be working at, and you know you have the skills for it, which is going to be a difficult uphill battle because they're letting you know that there's some different or proprietary software that you have to learn before you're on, full time, or before you're on active payroll and off of the probationary period, before you become a full-term employee, right? Which until then, you're going to be on probation. So having to learn this software is a pretty good justification on their part to put you on probation and to not consider any negotiations. But that doesn't mean if you tick every other box, it doesn't mean that you can have them agree in writing that they will reopen salary negotiations, or you can negotiate your salary to take effect after the probationary period ends, right? One of two ways. There's probably a couple of more, but for that we would need more information from the hypothetical client, and if we had them in front of us, I say this every episode, right? I just give you a blueprint, some generalized template of questions and answers and actionable information, some knowledge, which you can start sharpening steel with, right? Steel sharpens steel, and if I have to do it verbally, I hope you can receive it auditorily. If you like this type of information, you wish you had a circle like mine or somebody in your circle like us that you can talk about corporate moves, you can refer us to your friends, to your family, to your close associates and acquaintances. Find us on Instagram. That's at Corporate Cowboys with a Z. We're on Patreon. It's the Corporate Cowboys Podcast. You can subscribe to any number of tiers there. You can donate if you feel the need to. There's a Cash App, a PayPal, a Venmo. That's all available, and any funds that come in goes to keeping this podcast for free, and in addition to business expenses and legal fees outside. And you can write to us by all means. Use snail mail, send us, I don't know, questionable artifacts. That's P.O. Box 3372, Rancho Cordova, California, 95741. And we're always appreciative of your mail. We enjoy hearing from you and receiving whatever it is you want to share with us or have us use. Let's take a look at one or two of these comments here. The first one says, it sounds like they are basically trying to scam you out of a fair salary. They are waiting for you to quit your current job, so you are dependent and desperate. Damn, that motherfucker sounds like a victim. But hey, you want to play the victim? Motherfuckers like me are more than happy to victimize. I mean, you don't work for us yet, but we'll be more than happy to take you up under our wing and show you the rope. They say they write, personally, I would run away and never look back. I bet they act shitty in other ways too. Nah, I mean, just because they want to come out ahead, out of the gate, just off the jump, doesn't mean that you wouldn't do something similar, right, as a professional. But you're not in a position to do that. Not necessarily. More often than not, you are not, right? If somehow, it doesn't mean they're not honest, but at the same time, they're going to omit as much as they can, just much like you would, right? You want to think of most all professionals like stand-up people with criminal minds, much like a corporate cowboy. And really what they're looking out for is their organization, their corporation. But during the interview, if they tell you they will reopen negotiation, that is where you have them stick their money where their mouth is, right? Get them in writing. Get them in writing. Don't fucking fall back, rest on your laurels, and hope that, because that's a lot of fucking hope for it to just get thrashed and you to get victimized, right? Don't think that the same person you interviewed with is going to be the same person you renegotiate with at the end of your probationary period. One hand might not communicate with the other. You might have came on with a hiring manager, and that's going to be different from your division manager who chooses whether or not to keep you, to retain you, to promote you, to increase your salary. That might be the next person in the chain of command whom then you have to convince that you are worth more. But you can secure a spot. You can secure your opportunity to renegotiate and justify an increase in salary by getting it in writing. That puts the burden on the corporation itself, and it elevates you as an individual, as a professional, as a corporate cowboy. It elevates you to the level of corporate. And that's the basis of this entire podcast, is to elevate and empower the individual professional to work with corporate, not just for it. Second comment here, real quick. They write, if you can afford to, walk away. This is a bait and switch behavior, and it won't get any better post probation. That's 2 out of 2 victims. That's 2 out of 2 victims. And they're not thinking like corporate cowboys. This is one of those times, and it happens fairly often, where the folks on Reddit think like victims, right? And in my opinion, how I would have moved, which is by getting them in writing, you pretty much call them out on their bullshit. If it's not in the listing, if it's not in the job listing, then that shit is going to be in the job offer. If it's not in the job listing and you discuss it during the interview, it had better be in the motherfucking job offer. And that's how you move like a corporate cowboy. That's how you move like a consummate professional. By securing it in writing. Otherwise, you're going to be ass out of luck and back on Reddit bitching about how, well, they hired me and they said that we would renegotiate, that we would look at my salary after the probationary period. I mean, I signed the offer and then the probationary period came and went and I'm over here fucking, that's 30 minutes. Take care of yourself. Have a good one.